The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is, Wednesday, October 16th, 2019. Thanks so much for joining us. The debate last night was spectacular, spectacularly long, spectacularly boring, and spectacular in the way that they intentionally ignored several candidates, the least of which not being Bernie Sanders. I will blame some of this on the fact that Tom Perez, the president, the chairman of the DNC, is still putting 12 candidates on the stage. It's time to dwindle that down. We don't need Mayor Pete, but I know they're going to keep Mayor Pete because he's the great white hope. Okay, that's not fair. He's a great centrist hope. They thought Elizabeth Warren was going to be the centrist hope, but Elizabeth Warren can't help but to lean to the left. She can't help, like she's trying her best to pacify centrist supporters, but she in her heart is a progressive who actually gets stuff done. Right? They thought she would be their hope, but she's not. So they're abandoning her and they're throwing everything behind Klobuchar, as evidenced by the fact that CNN gave her an inordinate amount of time to speak last night. And no one really gives a damn about what Amy Klobuchar has to say or her twisted sense of humor that has the timing of a sloth. Like her comedic timing. I've never seen someone be so inappropriate with their comedy. Maybe except me. Maybe me. But but at least I have timing, right? I've got soul and I got timing and I've got experience with delivery, and she has none of that. And so every time she tried to deliver a joke, it fell flat and it was cringe. Not to mention the fact that she and Pete Buttigieg came out in full force in support of the status quo medical system, the insurance system that we currently have. I knew, let me tell you something. Last night was the first wave of attacks against the Medicare for All. The framing of the questions from CNN, the fact that they gave so much time to Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg to say what they had to say in defense of the current system, and then the fact that they put Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders on the defensive with regard to where they stand on Medicare for All, and then gave Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg as much time as they needed to try to dismantle their arguments. But thankfully, this is the difference between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. I love Elizabeth Warren. And I hope that Bernie Sanders will pick her as the VP, right? But thankfully, Bernie Sanders was there to give a full-throated defense of Medicare for All and the fact that, yes, your taxes are going to go up, but you will not have any premiums. You will not have any deductibles. You will not have any co-pays. You simply go to the doctor and get fixed. Now, as I was saying in a previous attempt to record this, because I did not hit the record button, I was just talking because I'm recording at 7-something in the morning, but I digress. In my previous attempt to record this, I outlined the one group of people who this is really going to hurt, and it's only going to hurt superficially, or at least temporarily. Bernie Sanders, Medicare for All. That's the group of people who currently have no insurance because they can't afford to pay anything. Now, if that group of people, and again, this is not just people who are impoverished. These are people who are on the cusp of being in the middle class who can't afford insurance. People who take the penalty when it's tax time because they could not afford to have coverage the full year. There's a tax penalty. It's more affordable for some people to take that penalty than to pay $200, $300, $400 a month right now for Medicare, for healthcare rather. Now, the reason it's going to hurt them is because their taxes are going to go up, and it's going to be their monthly expenses are going to increase underneath Bernie Sanders' plan. However, before you yell at the computer, right? I'm just calling it like it is. Before you yell at the computer, the fact is that I guarantee you, most people in that group would love for the opportunity to go get that pain in their back checked out, to go get that palpitation in their heart checked out, to go and get their headaches checked out. They simply can't do it because they can't afford it. It will be a crunch for them. And I just want to, Does that matter? Yes, it matters, because at the end of the day, people have to be able to pay their bills. And if they can't afford to pay their bills now, which means, right, which goes to another category. If we get rid of student loan debt, then that's freed up income that they could pay, right? It's got to be a whole. It's not a one size fits all. There's not one policy that's going to do it all. It's the combination of policy. If you don't have a job, the Green New Deal, 20 million new jobs guaranteed, federal jobs guaranteed. If you don't have, if you're paying too much in student loans, cancel the student loan debt. If you are not able to go to the doctor, Medicare for all. So it's got to all work in conjunction. And that's important, because if any one of these pieces are not in place, then it's still going to be difficult for some people. And that's what we're really trying to get away from. We're trying to get away from having to be slaves to the system and doing anything and everything just to make a buck in order to survive in the system. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go clip by clip on the debates, but I'll just give you the summary. The biggest loser has to be Joe Biden and Amy Klobuchar. Joe Biden, sometimes I understand the mental lapses and the forgetfulness, because, when you have, for me, it's when you have so much on your mind and you're doing so much and you're fighting over here and you're doing this, sometimes your mind just skips a beat. Right. So I'm not going to jump on him because of that. But I don't think it's because he's thinking about a lot. I think it's just he's past his prime. And that's going to happen to all of us eventually and inevitably. But the worst moment of the night was when he yelled at Elizabeth Warren in such a condescending tone that had Bernie Sanders done that to Donald Trump. If Bernie Sanders does that to Donald Trump, the donut Twitter and the moderates and the centrists will lose their effing mind. But yet, Joe Biden was able to yell at Elizabeth Warren in the most condescending tone that I have ever seen, and hardly a word in the media. Here's the other thing about last night. I'm going to cover a lot. I'm going to talk about Bill O'Reilly. I'm going to talk about the problem with leftist international policy or analysis. I'm going to cover a lot of miles today. But here's the other thing last night. The framing from CNN is utterly ridiculous. They had one question in there that was about income inequality, yet every other question was undermining. It was undermining actual policy. See, it's easy to talk about income inequality in the abstract, but when you actually talk about policy like Medicare for all, the wealth tax, student loan cancellation, any of these policies, progressive policies that will dwindle away, that will eat away at the income inequality. When you actually talk about those policies, CNN made sure that their framing was as right-wing as they could possibly imagine. It's fine. Let's talk about income inequality in the abstract because it'll get some applause. But when we actually talk about remedies to income inequality, they framed every single question in the most right-wing, with the most right-wing paradigm imaginable. Which led me to tweet last night. Listen, if I ran a media company, like a media company that had the resources and the reach and the power, there definitely needs to be a coalition of media companies that comes together from the left, from the progressive left, that would host, even if it's a renegade, even if it's an unsanctioned debate, even the DNC says hell no. You think that these candidates will ignore the opportunity to debate on a platform that's put together by, let's say, the Young Turks, joined up with Democracy Now!, joined up with Free Speech TV, joined up with Ring of Fire, joined up with Roland Martin Unfiltered, joined up with the Real News Network, a coalition of all of the top tier media outlets putting together a debate with the framing of every question from the left. No, the DNC would be extremely pissed, but the DNC could not stop the candidates who would seize the opportunity to try to get that audience. There has to be a voice there has to be a media framing from the left that is inserted into our politics. If we don't do it in 2020, we've got to have it by 2022, 2024. We have to. All right, when we come back, Bill O'Reilly is going to the left? Nah.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
And as always, I'd like to take this moment to thank our newest patrons. M, Just M, kind of like Q from Star Trek, just one letter. M, thank you for becoming a patron. You too can join this elite group of the most intelligent and the sexiest people on the internet by going to www.patreon.com/the BPD show. Okay, so many miles to cover. So here we go. All right. The biggest thing that happened last night, and I probably should have led with this. I'm burying the lead here, but I just kind of got really frustrated with how CNN hosted last night. But the lead, honestly, is a fact that Bernie Sanders has been endorsed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. I mean, it's a really great day for the Bernie Sanders campaign, and that's the biggest thing about this. Let me tell you something. The biggest thing about this. I mean, first of all, congratulations to Bernie Sanders, and shout out to everyone who attacked Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, calling her too centrist and triangulating and doubting her. She still may turn out to be those things, but she didn't today. She didn't last night, right? She isn't those things. And I'm extremely happy to see the first Palestinian congresswoman endorse the first Jewish potentially nominee for the presidency. So, I mean, there's so many, there mountains of nuance and beauty in these endorsements. I'm excited about them, and even though I'm talking about it in a really positive way, there is the pettiness in me that is very hard to resist. But damn right, I'm so excited about the fact that the Democratic Party is being forced to be realigned, because the most popular Democrats right now are endorsing the most popular Democrat, period. And this is not only to like shove it in the eye of the establishment, which they need it shoved in their eye, because they have fumbled the ball. They have been fumbling the ball for a long time. For a very long time. And it is time to head in a new direction. And I swear to God, if they mess up this impeachment inquiry, like I think I read a headline last night that they're going to wait and not actually go through the impeachment inquiry. I haven't had a chance to dig into that because I just don't have the time. Right? I mean, I have the time, but I just don't want to give it my headspace right now. I want to talk about this stuff right now. But if they mess it up, even if they don't mess it up, it's time for new leadership. It's time for new leadership, and 2020 is the opportune time to make that happen with the Democratic Party. Now, the opposite side of it is also a bit of pettiness towards all the people who, and this is, I punch in every direction and I don't care, all the people who insisted that we could not change the Democratic Party from within. And the only reason I bring that up is because we have shown, and third parties have shown, that we're not able to change anything from without, right? It is a unfortunate situation or feature of our system that it's only two parties. Until we actually change how we structure political campaigns in this country, it will be a two-party system. And so many people yelled and screamed at the top of their lungs that we should start a third party, dim exit, destroy the Democrats, and they put all their energy into destroying the Democrats. And now we've seen people like Bernie Sanders, like AOC, like Ilhan Omar, who have come in and held on to their values and their principles, and they are changing that party and pushing it to the left where it's supposed to be. Now, again, back with the framing from CNN, immediately after the debate last night, they start talking about, oh, is this pushing the Democratic Party too far to the left? You insipid, fatuous scumbags. Do you understand that the Republican Party is so far right, they are a fascistic death squad. They are a cult of death that is reveling in the number of people that they can cause irreparable harm through their policies. The cruelty is literally the point, and you frame this endorsement as being too urban and too far to the left. Well, then, damn it, push us to the left. as hard and as fast as we possibly can go, because we're up against something in this country that needs a radical solution. So, getting off my bully pulpit, extremely excited about this endorsement from Ilhan Omar, AOC, and Rashida Tlaib. We'll see what Ayanna Pressley does. And I mean, whatever she does, that's her business, right? There's a lot that I want to say, but I'm not going to say it today. I won't say it today. Enjoy it today. And we'll face some realities tomorrow. But for right now, extremely excited. Congratulations, Bernie Sanders. You got the endorsement from people that you back. And it makes sense, right? Bernie Sanders was like the only person to go to bat for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez during her primary. And I'm excited, man. There's a lot of stuff that can be done from within the system if you have the temerity and you have the organizing power. Some exciting times ahead. Let's see how it plays out. We'll be back. All right, Bill O'Reilly. I'm only going to talk about this for a few minutes because it's patently transparent what he's doing. He's trending in the country right now, and it appears as though he is considering some leftist ideas. Here's what he said last night. Bernie Sanders wants a political revolution because capitalism is destroying the world. This is true. It's very true. I'm glad you see the light, Bill. Bill O'Reilly also said Bernie Sanders says he promises every American will have a job. Green New Deal would create 20 million new jobs. Excellent. Well, it is excellent. It really is excellent that he sees the light, but I don't really believe that he sees the light. And he has been critical. Bill O'Reilly has been one of the most critical characters in pushing the America so far to the matter of fact. Dr. Tillerson. Bill O'Reilly's rhetoric literally led to the assassination of an abortion doctor, a doctor who provided abortions. That's Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly has forwarded. He was Tucker Carlson before Tucker Carlson. He was the one who sanitized white supremacy, put it in a suit and tie, and put it on network television, cable news. That's Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly is one of the people who pounded the war drums to get us into Iraq and Afghanistan. Bill O'Reilly. So if he's seeing the light, I don't care, because there will be no rehabilitation of Bill O'Reilly, not on my watch. There should be no and this is, oh my God, it was so ridiculous last night. They used the model of Ellen talking about her friendship with George W. War Crime Bush. The W stands for war crimes. I'm sure somebody else has said that before, but it just crossed my mind. George W. War Crimes Bush. And they elevated that. CNN elevated that to be something that we should aspire to. And then they asked everybody, who's somebody that you're a friend with that people would be surprised by? Oh, you fatuous tools. Rehabilitating people like John McCain. Rehabilitating people like Ted Cruz. Who was it? Cory Booker, who said he had a dinner with Ted Cruz. There will be no rehabilitation of any of these scumbags. Especially not Bill O'Reilly. Okay, let me make another move. Let's take a hard shift here. I'm going to play a voicemail that I got last night, and then we're going to shift to talk about foreign policy, because while I don't talk about it every single day, it probably is the place that I have the most formal training in. All right, so listen to this voicemail from a caller from Boston.
Hey, this is Max from Boston. First time, very long time. I just finished listening to your segment about LeBron James criticizing Daryl Morey of the Houston Rockets over his, allegedly standing in solidarity with protesters in Hong Kong. And I absolutely agree with your criticism. LeBron James, for everything that he is a capitalist. he is worth maybe $450 million by himself. And who knows how much of that is wrapped up in merchandising that has to do with China as well. So not only is it affecting his bottom line, but due to some of the deals that the NBA has with Chinese companies, this pullback potentially in China could cost each NBA team roughly $7 million in salary cap. So not only does it affect LeBron James' bottom line, but it also affects, the contracts and the abilities of his teammates to get jobs and continue to work in the league. He's securing the bag, as you'd like to say. And secondly, I just want to say, if you want to be like an anti-imperialist, it doesn't only mean opposing U.S. empire. If you are an anti-imperialist, you should be opposing other empires as well, whether that's standing in solidarity with protesters in Kashmir or Hong Kong. These are empires imposing their will on a captive populace, and we should stand with the oppressed, not the oppressors. Hong Kong is a city of 8 million people. Roughly 2 million people have joined in some of the largest marches. Of course, there's going to be disparate ideologies involved in any kind of mass movement like that. But seeing as one of their main aims is to reform police accountability, making the police more accountable to the people of Hong Kong as opposed to their current government, which is more or less just the forces of capital deciding what to do in Hong Kong, we should be absolutely standing in solidarity with those aims. Anyways, I thought it was a fantastic segment. And yeah, always love to hear your thoughts on these kinds of things. Thanks.
Thanks for that call, Max. I mean, when you said the line about if you are an anti-imperialist, then you have to oppose more than just American imperialism, I literally yelled, yes, like that's critical. So let me start here. There's a guy and on Twitter, I engage in some petty Twitter feuds and some scorched earth Twitter fights. That's kind of the nature of Twitter, but I rarely bring it to the show, especially this level of petty. There's a guy who I honestly don't even know why I followed him, but a guy named Dan Cohen who snipped a portion of my show yesterday and 100% misrepresented what I said on the show yesterday, and in fact quoted me incorrectly, saying that I, Benjamin Dixon, said that LeBron James bent over for China. Well, what did I actually say yesterday? Let's listen. It's because you have to understand, if you're going to criticize LeBron James, it cannot be in the context of calling him a communist or being in league with communism. It's about him, bending over for capitalism. That's from yesterday's show. Dan Cohen, who calls himself a journalist, said that I, Benjamin Dixon, said that he bent over for China. And the reason this matters, the only reason I'm taking time to say this on my show is not so much to be as petty on my podcast as I am on Twitter. It's because there is a fatuous and flawed and fallacious foreign policy shorthand that takes place on the radical left, so-called radical left, that is inaccurate and leads to the wrong answer almost every single time. And Dan, in his journalistic integrity and wisdom, fell victim to that. This is what happens, and I've covered this for years. And before anyone gets, let me lay out my bona fides on this, right? The only reason I don't have my PhD in international security is because I ran out of money. I'm all but dissertation on my PhD for international security, master's in international relations, bachelor's in economics. So I'm qualified to speak about this on a level far beyond a podcast. Okay. So I just want to just to set the record straight. Doesn't mean I know it all. No, and doesn't mean I haven't been wrong before. Right. All right. So I have been wrong before, and I am very capable of owning when I'm wrong in an analysis. I'm actually pleased to find out that I'm wrong about something because it shows a place that I can actually grow. But I'm not wrong about this. This is what people like Dan, whoever he is, who, he has a moderate following about the same size as mine. This is what he did wrong yesterday, and this is what leftists do wrong so many times. When your entire foreign policy uses this shorthand, America bad, you will ignore all of the other bad things that are happening on international stage. And bad is doing a hell of a lot of work in that sentence. Let me make it more precise. Like the caller said, if you are an anti-imperialist, you have to be an anti-imperialist wherever imperialism raises its ugly head. And you cannot. Okay, before I even finish that sentence, I want to establish it even more. There is a shorthand that says anywhere that America is on the international stage, we must oppose America. Because to some leftists, America is the only evil on the international stage, which shows me that they have not taken the time. They have the passion. They have the passion to fix the problems on the international stage. I don't doubt your sincerity. OK, I'm not going to doubt any of your sincerity that have a passion, but you don't have the analysis. You don't have the understanding of how the international stage works, because if you did, you would understand that just as much as America is an empire, China is an empire. What do you think their standing military of a few million soldiers is about? What do you think their investments, even though it doesn't rival what the United States is spending yet in in defense, they are making the investment in war. They are preparing themselves to be an empire that can one-to-one rival the United States of America. But if your analysis simply says America bad, then that will make you contort your view of everything on the international stage. And what they have done to make this worldview, this paradigm, this shorthand analysis work is that they strip every single group, every single protester, every single subversive force on the international stage, that they strip them of their autonomy. They have to. Because in order for them to say hands off of Syria, they have to reframe everything that happened in Syria in the context of the United States. And what I mean by that is that what they claim is happening in Syria is a regime change war, ignoring and completely invalidating the authenticity of the protesters that began, that started this, that were at the tip of the spear that led to the civil war. And so everything that came out of Syria was all of a sudden about manufacturing consent. Oh, that's not real. That's a false flag. Every single thing, everything, even down to the original protesters, they had to make it about America and say that it was American funded protest, which completely strips the autonomy of the people of Syria who did not want to remain underneath the control of Bashar al-Assad. You even saw that in the debate last night with Tulsi Gabbard when she was asked about the Kurds. This is going to be a long episode because she pissed me the hell off. When she was asked about the Kurds, she made it about Bashar al-Assad being under the attack of a regime change war being led by American troops, which is factually untrue. The special forces that were in Syria were not engaged whatsoever in any of the conflict of the civil war. They were engaged in protecting our allies on the northern border of Syria. They were, and here, let me go a little bit further. It goes beyond that, because what happens then is now not only do we betray the authenticity and the autonomy of citizens, working people. How can how can workers of the world unite when you, in the name of anti-American imperialism, side with Chinese imperialism and the resurgent Russian imperialism? The best that you could do is just go ahead and admit that you want to give another empire a try on the international stage. But short of you making that confession, you have to triangulate, you have to contort your international policy to always oppose America in the face of another empire. You're having to go through all these kind of machinations to make sure that you can frame what's happening on the international stage in the context of American imperialism bad, and everybody else is fighting against American imperialism. No, they're not. No, then China is not fighting against American imperialism. China is replicating American imperialism. Quote that, tweet that. China is not fighting American imperialism. Russia is not fighting American imperialism. They're replicating American imperialism. And they're doing so with the brute force of authoritarianism. Yes, criticize the hell out of America. But the truth of the matter is that Russia and China are imperialist forces that are using authoritarianism to brutally crush dissent. And you don't think that in the face of dictatorial authoritarianism, that there won't be an authentic and genuine resistance that grows organically in any nation across the face of this planet? You think that the only way someone could oppose, you know what? That is as insipid and as disgusting as casting black radicalism in the United States as a product of Russian influence. You know how disingenuous that argument was? You know how much that pissed you off when people try to cast all of the opposition to centrism in terms of the Red Scare, in terms of Russia? Well, you're literally doing the same thing, but you're doing it to every single nation, and you're doing it in the name of opposing American imperialism. No. You think you're doing it in the name of being anti-imperialist, but what you're doing is only opposing American imperialism, and you find yourself on the side of dictators who don't even hold your values. Let's go there. How in the world can you justify standing behind not only a dictator, not only an authoritarian, but an authoritarian who doesn't even hold your economic values? China, yeah, it's one thing for them to be authoritarian, but you do realize they're capitalist. They are the worst of both worlds, literally. But in the name of anti-American imperialism, you're going to stand with the Communist Party of China when they're not even communist, they're actually capitalist. They might as well change their names to the Capitalist Party of China, right? But because your simplified, intentionally obtuse, and downright childish worldview that America bad, only America bad, anywhere America is, we have to oppose them, you find yourself in league with dictator after dictator after dictator. And I guess you're okay with authoritarianism. Okay, fine. But you also find yourself in league with outright capitalists who are exploiting their own working class. And then what you do is, in the name of anti-American imperialism, what you do is you strip the autonomy and the agency of the working class of that nation, because your intellectual worldview of foreign policy, which must absolutely be without knowledge. Must absolutely, because if you study this for any amount of time, you could not make this conclusion that anywhere America is, the opposite party must be good. The opposite belligerent must be good. Well, here's the other thing. America and China are friendly as hell. It's not like they're actually in any conflict. They are buds. America and China, they're just fine. They know they need each other. They are codependents. Both of their economies will tank and irrevocably will be destroyed. The elites would be destroyed if they ever had a serious conflict. So this entire positioning that the left has now, framing China as being the victim of American influence, which strips the autonomy and the agency from the working class in that nation. But it has nothing to stand on, because America and China are actually collaborators. They are both complicit on the international stage for the exploitation they're complicit with the exploitation across the globe, not only the exploitation of their own working class, the exploitation in Africa, and the spread of their own type of imperialism. Why do you think there are what is it, Mandarin? There are Mandarin courses being taught in every country on the face of the planet, being funded by the Chinese government. Do you think that's simply just because they want to spread culture? No, they have a plan to be what America is. And the only reason they'll never go to war with the United States of America is because they're financially interdependent. China needs America as much as America needs China. So they have agreed to split the spoils of this planet. And here you are standing against. And before I finish that sentence, like the caller said, like I said on yesterday, in any resistance, you're going to have a myriad. You're going to have a bunch of different ideologies, everyone taking advantage of the opportunity to resist. So sure, I'm sure there are people in there that are funded by the CIA, but you have stripped the autonomy and the agency of the legitimate, authentic, organic. You're basically saying they're too dumb. Do you realize that? How did you feel when they said the resistance in the United States against centrism was funded by Russia? It made the argument that people in America weren't smart enough to actually see the problems with America themselves. And you're literally doing the same goddamn thing to people in China, in this case, Hong Kong. China is an imperialist power. Russia is a resurgent imperialist power. And neither one of them are communist or socialist. So how can you as a leftist justify being on their side at the expense of the working class in their country? You know how you do it? Because the totality of your worldview, the totality of your foreign policy analysis is America bad. And I'm sorry. Not only is that ridiculously juvenile, but it gives us no policy. It gives us nothing that we can actually use to push back against American imperialism. It gives us nothing. And what it does, furthermore, it elevates imperialism just from another country. Capitalistic imperialism, champ. Capitalism. But so often we're seeing that leftists in this country, in the United States of America, are willing to side with capitalists on the international stage just so that they can position themselves. I don't know what it's you're doing a performance here. You're doing a song and dance for leftists here in the United States. But you find yourself siding with imperialist capitalists on the international stage against workers just so that you can find a way to stand against the United States in all things. Whether you like it or not, the fact is, as many horrible things as the United States has done on the international stage, every now and then they do find themselves on the right side of the argument. But you can't tolerate that analysis because you couldn't possibly tolerate that analysis because your only lens to see the world is America bad. That's the only thing that gives you life to write, I guess. I guess that's the only thing that gives you something to tweet about. That's the only way you can understand. That's the only framework that you understand. Well, might I suggest taking a minute to actually learn about international relations and learn about foreign policy and understand about the ways that we cooperate and the ways that we have conflict. And then after you've taken a minute to actually understand that, you would see very clearly that China is an imperialist, capitalist power that is looking to replicate what America has done and to do it in the name of a single party authoritarian system that brutally crushes dissent. Not in the name of communism, not in the name of socialism, but literally in the name of state-sponsored capitalism. Way to go, champs. You played yourselves. You know where to find me.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.